Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back, and he is a business development and personal transformation coach and joins us once again. Before I even introduce him, I just love this, the website, IFGTcoach.com. IFGT stands for...
It's freaking go time.
There's nothing more to say. This guy is not messing around. Joey Drolshagen is back on the program. Joey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's awesome to be here with you, Steve. Love our conversations.
Same. It's great to have you back. And we started last time we got together. We're going to pick up from that point, but it's all about your mindset, getting or having the right mindset so that you can move forward. Either it's personally or professionally with the goals that you have. I think a lot of people struggle with that. How do I get in that mode to move?
Absolutely. You know, and part of the thing is we don't attribute what we achieve or not achieve to mindset. What we attribute it to is where we live, how much money we have in our bank account, what kind of degree we have, who we know, all of that we say is what determines how far we can go in life. But that's not true. Our subconscious conditioning is really our patterns, our paradigms, our habits are really what determine the actions we will or won't take. You know, we were talking a little bit beforehand about the logical mind. We're so conditioned through schooling and everything else that we live through our logical mind that you have to have, and our society is set up that way. You have to know the answers, right? You have to figure it out. You know, it goes all the way back to the squeaky wheel gets the grease, you know, and so we're so often programmed to go harder and harder into our logical thinking, but it's the most limited avenue we have to bring about what we desire. Because what it does is as we go deeper into that, as we start strategizing, we miss those opportunities, Steve, for like things to come out of the blue, for things that just happen to work out, to overhear something at a coffee shop that when we're going 100 miles an hour in our logical mind, we don't even catch on to those things. So it's really every client I work with, we slow down enough to, and get out of that logical thinking to start, and we start opening up amazing avenues so quickly in life by doing so.
I can totally see what you're saying, Joey, because we are moving so fast that we don't even see the opportunity. And the opportunity could be somebody next to you at Starbucks, and you could turn your head and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or just smile or whatever and start a conversation. And that could be your next job lead, could be anything. But we're all, I got to get in, get it done, finished. And it's a problem.
Yeah, and I work with a lot of business owners, you know, and we're conditioned that we go hard, right? We figure out our strategy, we get our plan, we get our exhaustive to-do list, and then we start hammering it, and we go, and we run. And what happens through that process is typically somebody who's going really hard at it and they're not getting results. What do they typically tell themselves, Steve?
I just can't succeed.
I have to go harder. I got to do more, right? I got to do more. So they do more.
Yeah.
They put aside the important parts of their life, like family and you know, taking care of their health and things like that, to go even harder and harder and harder. And then at some point when the whole thing crumbles because they're just exhausted, they consider themselves a failure.
Yeah.
And I've worked with a lot of business owners who it took them a lot to be, even though they had a great idea, to step back into bringing that idea to fruition because of their past failures and because they identify themselves to those, when all it really was is they tried to work hard enough to bring that about. And when we're doing that, using our logical mind, we have a fixed avenue we run down and we just go like hell. And if it doesn't work, there is no understanding or of what's going on while they're going through it. So they can't make the tweaks and the adjustments in as they're going through the process to let that pathway identify it to them, you know, come to them. They just go like gangbusters.
How do we tap the brakes, Joey? If somebody's wired that way and it's just like, keep moving. It's almost like Finding Nemo. What was it, Dory? Keep swimming.
Yes.
Stop.
Yes.
How do you stop?
Great analogy too, by the way. It's a great movie. But yeah, that's a great question. And it all really starts, Steve, with a desire. Like it comes from pain a lot of times, you know, we can't stand living this life like this anymore. And that is really the door opening. From there, what I call a beginner mindset. You know, we all know a lot, but instead of looking at what you already know, What can you add to your current knowledge base? That's a beginner mindset. When we get that, then we can go into the process of looking at, like, all of that go is in the subconscious. It's all embedded in what I call the motherboard of the subconscious. And so we have to go in there, we have to identify that. And then as we identify it, we have to shift that. And that's how I've taken people who were just killing themselves in the business, making $5 million a year in revenue. And within a year, went to over $22 million a year in revenue. And it was the only year of her life she took 5 weeks of vacation in the same year.
Wow.
So we have to disrupt that. We have, and the SMT method that I've developed is aligned to start bringing that about. We start with developing a vision, and then we just start moving into that vision. And as we move into it, nobody wants to have a life with a successful business that they've practically killed themselves to get, right? And so as we start walking into that, we start bumping up against those patterns and those paradigms and that conditioning, so that we can then shift that and do perception shifting and some other tools. We can quickly shift that and start opening that up. And I'm telling you, when you take somebody that's been going like gangbusters and they slow down and see their business increase, that person is sold at that point.
Yeah, why wouldn't you be?
Yes.
You've been almost literally killing yourself for so much time. And then you realize, wait a minute, I don't have to, and I can do even better because now I have more of a focus. How do you, when you work with somebody, Joey, get into the subconscious mind? Now, I know there's lots of ways to do it, modalities, hypnotherapy. I've tried that before, and some other things. How do you do it?
Yeah, and like you said, there's a lot of avenues for it. What I do is I have the program designed in a way where what we do, once we have the vision, because that's our starting point, that's our carrot right there. We get that vision, and then as we start moving into that, the excitement of moving into that vision, we along with that, we start setting up, developing what I call systems of accelerating habits. So instead of doing the things that everybody says you have to do to be successful, as we start identifying what is that for the unique individual I'm working with. Once we start identifying those things, and they're things, Steve, that excite us to do. There are things that, like this conversation you and I are having, we're both excited to be in this conversation. If this were something forced on you or I or both, and it's what we're not doing, we're not attracting messengers and people to this message. We're pushing them away. So when we start aligning that, all of a sudden people are doing things they're excited about, and just in that alone, they start attracting opportunities and ease. And 4 weeks into working with me, a gentleman down in Texas who had, he has a business he's had for a few years. They're surviving, but not really thriving, his family. And he's been trading away time with his family, which is why he went in the business for that freedom, to try to build the business. Within 4 weeks, we have doubled his business income on a monthly basis. Wow. And it's continuing to grow. And Steve, he's not added any more advertising. He's not gone any more outreach. He's actually pulled back, and he's actually doing less. But the things he's doing, and that's where the difference is. Successful people just like you, you don't do certain things. You do things in a certain way. And when we get into alignment with that systems of accelerating habits that are unique to each of us, all of a sudden it starts really exploding the results experienced.
Can you say that again? Because it's so powerful and so
not the whole thing, right?
No, just the one little nugget that we need to remember.
Absolutely. Is successful people don't do certain things. Successful people do things in a certain way.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's so true when you think about that. And if
you think about it, what may be like really exciting and passion filled and stuff for you might not be for me. So it's finding my own avenues. And that's why a lot of the things don't work when we go to somebody who's successful and say, tell me what you did, and then try to mimic that, because that worked for them. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you or for me or somebody else.
And that doesn't mean that you can't look at somebody's success or somebody that you admire and take little pieces, from them. It could even be their signature on their email. Yeah, that looks really cool. I'm going to take that. Those little things, that resonate with you.
Right. And that's what I tell people, because they'll so often take these programs and they'll want to do every single thing that person did, and that's what the person's teaching is what they did to become successful. Where I differ I don't tell any of my clients the exact avenue I followed, each step I took, everything else, who I called when, everything else. I talk to them about how I took the information that I had learned coming in, and then I deciphered that and set that up into a set of habits that worked for me. And I defined those and I tweaked those and I got that going. And that's exactly what I teach every client. So when I get done working with somebody, Steve, they can take that their pathway of success, those systems of accelerating habits, and they can apply it to any adventure or endeavor they take on. And they've got a locked in system that works for them, but it won't work for somebody else.
You said the key word, I believe, is system.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't know what works for them. So maybe that's where you come in to kind of expose and say, that's not working for you, or that is working for you. Actually, we have instant feedback. Steve@gmail.com is how you can reach us. Kira checks in from Camden, New Jersey, and says, I've been thinking about a career change and going into business for myself. How do I know it's the right decision?
Great question. Man, that's a good question. I start out everything I do with a vision. As I develop that vision of that, it either builds that excitement, and I know I'm here today talking to you because of my vision. There's other things that I started with my vision, and as I start looking into them, it's like that's not the right pathway. And I've recently, like within weeks, worked with a new client who came to me and he wanted to do this business and everything. And then when we really got into his vision isn't to repeat corporate from an ownership standpoint that he's experienced for 25 years. It's that he wants to go into a whole new avenue, and he's excited about it, but he's afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like an ideal person to get to work with, because when I can get them ignited and get that flowing for them. So, developing a vision, coming up with what's the exciting part of that, and really even being open to, as you're developing that, allow it to flow, allow it to guide you through the place of it. But you can't develop a mighty vision from your logical thinking. It's got to come from your feeling tone. It's got to have the feeling tone as far as what does it feel like to be that person. And if you allow that to be your guide, you'll identify that much more powerful, and whichever direction it is, have excitement going into it, which makes a huge difference in bringing about results.
Would you say when you tap into the subconscious, what you just said a second ago, is the answer there? Like for Kira, who reached out to us, if we get inside, or she finds that she can get inside her subconscious, and I always believe that you have the answers inside you, you just got to pull them out. Will her answer be there?
Always. But depending on how we go about it, I spent over a decade trying to use the conscious mind, right? Which is what we have control over. Positive thinking, the words I use, the phrases, the things I read, the vision boards, like all of that stuff and everything. And I never moved forward with it. I would like people like being around me, Steve, but like I didn't achieve anywhere near what I wanted to achieve. So we got to be a little bit careful on how we go about that process. But within the subconscious mind lies all of like the master tools for us. That's where our intuition, resides. That's where like all of those gifts outside of the logical mind reside within the subconscious. So tapping into that and how we tap into it, yes, the answers are always. I've worked with almost 1,000 clients, and some people knew what they wanted to do. Some people thought they knew what they wanted to do, and it changed. Other people had no idea what they wanted to do, and every one of those people are living like just loving their life.
Would you say there is benefit? Now, we talked about positive affirmations and all that stuff that you did for almost a decade, and it got you somewhere, but not where you needed to go. But would you say it is beneficial to be the positive person, keep that going?
It's absolutely necessary. It's critical. And here's why. Our conscious mind is what we control. The thoughts we use, the thoughts we entertain, the words we use, the people we hang out with, what we watch on TV, like all of that's in the conscious. The subconscious absorbs whatever the conscious mind is focused on. So if we're thinking negative, pessimism, can't do, failure, everything, that's what we're feeding into the subconscious. That's why you'll see people that will talk about being in financial struggle, and they'll share that. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. And they experience more of it because we're feeding that directly into the subconscious mind.
Yep.
So once I understood the subconscious, within weeks, I could turn around my financial situation. Within weeks, I could start connecting actions to what my desires were up here. But if you think about it, up here's our conscious mind. Bob Proctor taught me this. Up here's our conscious mind. That's where we have the control. That's what we're focused on and everything else. That's our knowing. We know at some level what we want to do. We know we want a life of freedom and we want wealth and abundance and love and all of that. So we know all that. But then when we look at our actions, they're not in alignment with that. Somebody who wants to lose weight and you see them, after some time and not seeing them and they're down, in weight and they got clothes and they look really different clothes, look really good and everything. And that's what that person's their knowing is. But then you'll see that person at lunch or go to lunch with them and they'll eat a piece of chocolate cake. There's that disconnect between the knowing and the doing. The knowing is the conscious. The subconscious is all the doing. The subconscious is what triggers our brain waves to tell us which actions to take and not to take. That's why I can tell very quickly if somebody's in fear, doubt, and worry, because they'll procrastinate. And they'll go, I don't even know why I do that. But that's why it is. It's that disconnect between the conscious and subconscious that causes that knowing doing gap. And so throughout the process, it's designed to close that gap.
Love the way you explain that. And now it's like crystal clear. It's almost the conscious and the subconscious have to be in alignment for it to actually work. You know what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're in misalignment and we're just like people go, I don't know why I keep experiencing this. I don't know why. Addiction. Somebody asked a question last week about, can you take the subconscious conditioning into a negative? And you can. Addiction is a great avenue for that, right? Where somebody learns that, they can overcome their anxiety or fear of talking to people and everything else by throwing down a few drinks or whatever it may be, right? And then at some point, whenever they become anxious, it's almost like they need to use that substance. It becomes a need. It becomes an addiction. And so that's taking it in that other way. So even somebody who smokes, for instance, as their relaxing break and such, I can help somebody very quickly to change that link in there. And we start in the conscious mind. We quit identifying ourselves as a smoker. That's the very first part because as we identify with it, it just drives that signal back further. When we break that connection, it allows us to reprogram the subconscious in a different way with different programming.
How would you explain that programming? And just, even a sentence, you just ran into somebody, they want to know, like for me, I believe I reprogrammed my mind through hypnotherapy. I think it was beneficial. Probably going to do it again. I've done it twice now and I feel a difference. But everybody has different goals. How do you do it?
I do it through walking through, and again, our conditioning is going to show up most when we're taking an action against it, right? So as we're developing systems of accelerating habits, we're coming up with action. We're employing the vision, intuition, like all the powers that are, fully available to us. And we get the action, we take the action. But for instance, a gentleman, I helped him more than double his business. And now he needs a team to handle all the extra business and that, the orders and everything else and such. And he knew he needed to hire somebody. He was excited to hire somebody, but when it came time to step into finding that person, man, he just put on the brakes and he stopped. And, and so it's going through that. It's understanding when he's not putting on the brakes because he doesn't want to handle more business. He wants to grow his business even higher. So what's happening there is it's that conditioning causing that. So we can go in there and we can shift that conditioning. We can get refocused back on the vision and very easily, very quickly. And even with excitement, we start making these shifts there. And all of a sudden, new things start opening up quicker and easier for us. So that's the process that I follow in short.
I got to tell you, I was just going to give an example of somebody, a friend of mine, and I haven't texted with her or talked to her in a few days. And I was just thinking about talking about her and she just texted me. It's the weirdest thing.
Isn't that awesome the way that happens?
Yeah, she's like, how you doing? So this is somebody who, and I think it's a good example. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
She is a wonderful person, great spirit, great connector of people, does so much charity work, but can never move forward in terms of abundance. She's just like, I got to find a way to make more money. I have to. And I really believe that it was the beliefs that maybe came from her parents of you got to save, you got to be careful. All of that's in her subconscious and she never moves forward. And I simply tell her, you know what? Think about change your mindset to make money, be abundant.
Yes. Yeah, I would love to talk to her, Steve, because you're absolutely right. It does. It starts the day we're born. And we don't get to choose our conditioning. So it's not our fault for the conditioning we got. And even the people giving it to us were doing the best they could. But growing up in watching in a very low income blue collar family in Detroit, I watched both my parents struggle, work exhaustive hours just to make ends meet and put food on the table and stuff. And in my 20s, I swore at 9 years old I was going to break this. I was not repeating this pattern in my 20s. And man, I was working in corporate. I had my own business, and I still struggled regardless of what my income was. And one of the first indicators for me is when I realized that if something came easy for me, Steve, I thought I did something wrong or was cheating.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That if anybody takes anything away from today, that is it.
Yeah.
We derail ourselves into guilt, into not being feeling like we deserve abundance and good things that come our way. It's almost like we just push it away because we don't feel we're worth it.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Again, in that same time frame, one of the other things I recognize is like if I was happy for too many days in a row, it got really, really uncomfortable. And I got really afraid because it's like if I'm this happy, that means I'm going to be this much knocked down somehow, and it's the subconscious conditioning that tells us those things. So we have to, so if we don't shift it, we just continue to live our life like that.
I've spoken to a lot of life coaches before, but you nailed it right there, Joey. It
Yeah.
is so important. And I truly believe that most of us are doing what you just said. Like we're afraid to be happy. Got a couple of days here, things are good. Well, what happens when I'm not happy?
Yeah.
That-
Yes. And and that is exactly what happened. Wallace has a quote I absolutely love. He says, if you are not consciously choosing to be rich, excellent, and healthy, then you are unconsciously choosing to be poor, mediocre, and unhealthy. And you think about that, they're not even really choosing it, actively thinking, choosing it. They're doing it unconsciously. And what part of my mission of my life is, Steve, is to help people get into conscious thinking, get into looking at this isn't how I want to live my life. I don't want to go to this job, year after year after year. I can't stand working here. Then and let that pain of that drive you to do something different because there's gold in that pain. There's gold in our discontents to help guide us to what we do want. But if we just unconscious of it and push it down and use alcohol and overeat and do the things people do to avoid it, and I've done the same thing, so I'm not ridiculing anybody, but until we get to that point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, we won't experience life differently. We'll just experience more of that struggle.
It's almost as if what you offer, what you preach is a wake up. I want you to wake up your subconscious. It's there.
Yes.
Why would you want to be miserable? And back to my friend, Patricia, she will, I've one of her jobs, will host these high-end parties, and bring in other people. So let's say the entertainment or the chef, the cook, and they're getting paid. I'm like, Trish, you should be making money off of that. You're connecting these people. Well,
Yeah.
like you need to talk to her.
I should. That's conditioning right there. And one of the other things I'm really proud of what I do. I mean, Steve, like when we talk about this, telling you my clients achieve ridiculous results kind of sounds like, but I am awed at how powerful this is, and to the point that I offer everyone I work with 100% money back guarantee. If I don't get you incredible results, I'll give you your money back when we get done. You follow the process, and out of, like I said, almost 1,000 clients, I've not had one ask for a refund. In fact, what people tell me is you should be charging 2-3 times what you charge.
Yeah.
And I'll say, can I bill you for the difference? And they always go, wait, what?
Well, let's come up with a deal, maybe stock options or whatever it is, when you succeed. Tell everybody. Oh, by the way, let me ask, what time is it?
What time is it?
Frickin' go time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Boom, I missed that. Oh my God.
It's almost like, what was that? The Geico commercial with the camel walks in. What day is it? What time is it? It's freaking go time. And that's the website, ifgtcoach.com. Somebody reaches out, free discovery call to see if it's a good fit.
Absolutely. And they can do it right there on the website, ifgtcoach.com. Just remember, it's freaking go time.
Yeah.
And you can schedule a 10-minute call. We can jump on the phone. You can see all the stuff I do and the interviews and, all the talks and such, any upcoming events. But yeah, you can schedule a call with me there, or you can take advantage of a free coaching session. If this resonates, just go on the website and reach out.
I'm totally on board. All the principles that you're talking about in my journey, this is what I've learned so far, but you take it to other levels in terms of tapping into the subconscious and moving lives forward. It's awesome.
Yeah, and one of the other things I want to bring up here is I'm so excited to be merged with Rimpage, who these guys are doing. I mean, they're literally changing basketball right now, but it'll go on the sports industry and opening up for talent to be found, sought after, signed up, and things like that outside of our normal channels, where such a small percentage of people get recognized. And they're putting these one-on-one games together, and I get to work with the athletes as far as their mindset and increasing their performance and really, just igniting these guys. And it's so awesome to see this. And anybody can go to Rimpage, RIMPAGE.club and watch the matches. Like, they have a lot of the, interviews and things like that of the players, so you get to know them. So it's really addicting to get tied into and stuff, but just amazing what they're doing to the sports industry. And I'm really honored I get to be a part of that.
I got it. You mentioned that last time. I didn't have time to check it out, but I am this time.
Yeah. Okay, good. They got matches going on, I think, this Sunday, and you can watch them live through Rimpage.club, or you can get the replays of them and stuff. But these guys are amazing, and you'll be able to tell the guys that have the mindset, because they're like the Michael Jordans, where they're just kind of floating up and down the court back and forth. And the guys that don't are just trying their hearts out. They're just killing themselves trying to perform at that level. And it's so awesome to see that difference between the two.
Yeah, like I as you're explaining it, I see it like the easy flow, like they're floating because it's coming from within. And there's nothing stopping them. Literally, your subconscious is no longer stopping you because we've tapped into it. Joey, great talking with you today.
Same here. I really enjoy these conversations.
Same.
Look forward to some more of them.
Same thing. Learn so much. Have a great weekend, okay?
All right, you too. Be blessed.
What time is it?
It's freaking go time.
Go. All right, we'll talk soon. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.